Okay, so question is about health and the perception of rising health problems in the West. Okay, so we deal with this straight away. Okay, so the first thing to remember about health is that really what we're looking for is well-being. Well-being of a physical sense, well-being of a spiritual sense, well-being of an emotional sense, well-being of a mental sense. All of these well-beings come together to create health. If any one of them are missing from being well-being, then you are discovering a lack of health. Now, the problem that you have with Western health is that Western health has predominantly, for such a long time now, concentrated on health merely as a means of physical representation of being without sickness. Now, this is not an accurate nor a helpful way of depicting health, you see. When your focus is so much on the physical, and we can include in that, from the Western point of view, we can include mental health in there, because the mental health and the physical health are predominantly the focal point for Western medicine when it comes to what they label health. So what you have is, you see, an overwhelming sense of predominance about health, meaning the functioning patterns of the body and the functioning patterns of the brain, the mind. Now, this is not to say that they're not important, but if that is your limitations for health, well, why do you think so many people are suffering? You see, you've ignored spiritual health, you've ignored emotional health, you've ignored energy health, you've ignored all these other sides that are equally important, and when they are ignored, you see, you cannot have full health. So therefore, it's not possible to create a healthy body if you don't have a healthy spirituality. Is just not possible, and you will see this. This is not to say you have to be at all religious or that you have to be at all into spiritual concepts. What it means is that you have to have a feeling of something else other than which you are, to which you can, if you like, reside in when you are being other than physical. Now, it's important to have that, because you see, your spiritual health is this feeling that you are on a path, that you are on a journey, that you are where you need to be, what you need to be doing at the right time, always, no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, no matter what path you're on, you are okay. So spirituality, in a broad sense, the broadest sense you can imagine, is a health that is often forgotten in the Western world. It's not forgotten so much in the Eastern world, although it's starting to be sidelined even there. But it will come back. People are awakening, as we all know, so this will come back. But you see, you can't have health if you are so devoid of looking at the broad spectrum of what health actually means. You have to incorporate all these areas of human experience in order to understand and create a healthful life. So the rise in the West is down to so many things, predominantly because of the exclusion in a vast majority of people of these other concepts of what health means. So when they come back into the picture, you have a much better opportunity to create mental health and to create physical health, you see. So let's start by saying that it's the exclusion of these other forms of well-being that have attributed to a physical and a mental lack of health. So that's the first step. And so what our recommendation would be to focus on these other areas. If you focus on the physical, focus on the mental, well, you're actually going to throw up all the things that are out of balance in the physical and in the mental. But until you introduce these other concepts that are there waiting to be included, you will never hope to have full physical health or full mental health. So you're only going to continue to show up by your choosing to focus on those two narrow concepts and refusing to include the others. You're only going to show up more and more and more of what's missing, because you can't be whole if you're excluding all the other areas that need to be included. So that's the first thing. So our recommendation would be focus on your energetical health, focus on your other areas of well-being, spiritual well-being, yes, and your we've said it before, but your joy, because you can't have emotional well-being excluded from life and then say, why aren't I healthy? Do you see? You have to bring the full spectrum of health and well-being into the picture in order to be able to create a healthy body, a healthy mind, a healthy emotional system, a healthy energetical system, a healthy spiritual system, all of these ideas and all of these concepts. So we really want to see health being extended and extended to include all these things. And it can be done so simply, you see. It can be done so simply. It's not difficult. It's made difficult by medicine that says that if something is physically wrong, then you need to have a physical solution for it. Well, actually, probably if something is wrong physically, the worst place you can look is to the physical. We would say look everywhere else, but stop staring at the physical, because the more you concentrate on what's wrong with the physical, the more you're going to create more of what's wrong with the physical. And unless and until you bring in all the other areas of your well-being, you're not going to heal in a whole, full sense your own human experience health. So you can only keep increasing and keep increasing and keep increasing and keep increasing that which you are focusing on. So you have to look elsewhere. And in looking elsewhere, if you look to your other areas of well-being, you will then be creating a whole experience that you can heal. And in healing the whole experience, you see, you will create physical health, mental health, spiritual health, emotional health, energetical health, all the other well-beings that you wish to feel and experience in your human lifetime. So that would be our recommendation. Take your mind, take your focus off of what it is that isn't working. We're not saying, for example, if you're seeing a doctor, you're taking pills for something, stop taking the pills. Do what you need to do, because your belief is probably invested in the prescription that you are taking at that given time. So don't have to stop it. But look at every other area. If it's a physical problem you have, well, let's explore your emotional health. Let's explore your spiritual health. Let's explore your energetical health, or let's explore your mental health. You see, because in the exploration of those, you will start to uncover the areas that need addressing, the areas that do need your focus for healing. And in healing those, you find yourself creating a whole, which will mean that you are healed. So the rise in the West is really down to a few things. One is this, that we've just said, that there is a misunderstanding of what health is. And it's perpetuated day in, day out by the medical systems that are in place, by hugely well-meaning people much of the time, who just don't understand what a well-being is. And so how can they possibly be held accountable in many ways for their lack of understanding? Do you see? They're trained to be physical, or they're trained to be mental doctors. They're here to do that. If you engage with them, then you understand that that's their training, that's their background, that's where they're going to meet you. So you can't blame them, really, for what they're doing, because most of them are engaged in what they're doing from a very well-meaning place. They have a lack of understanding of what it takes to be a well-being, and therefore we need to extend ourselves beyond the reaches of Western medicine at this time, because they cannot hope to complete the circle of well-being, because they don't understand what it is, because they haven't been trained to understand, they haven't been opened up to the exploration of what it is to understand of what a well-being is. So you need to look broader and wider than the Western medicine. That's the first thing. The second thing I would say is that what you're doing here is okay. 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 Now, I wanted to interrupt because you see, what you have to do to appreciate health is to let go of your addiction to sickness. And unfortunately, the way of the West is that we are so absorbed with sickness that we make no room for exploration into full health, full wellness. And really, as you continue on your path into further and further and further, deeper and deeper and deeper absorption with sickness, you are withdrawing yourself from health and well-being. Now, when we talk of full health, we're talking about the alignment of your physicality with your spirituality, with your mental agility, with your beingness of light. And any time that you are out of alignment from that beingness of light, you are entering into the sphere of life where you will start to recognize symptoms of ill health. And therefore, any chance you have of regaining health comes from realignment back into beingness of light. Now, what does beingness of light mean? It means a letting go of all the stresses that are in the world. And the West has made a remarkable effort of creating undue and unnecessary stress for itself. And what you are witnessing in the epidemics, as the questioner asked, what you are witnessing in these epidemics, predominantly in the West, though we will get to other cultures too, is this feeling of overwhelm due to the way that the West has conjured up, created for itself, unnecessary and undue stresses that can't do anything but pull you out from your beingness of light. And in that separation from beingness of light, you see, you are overwhelmingly generating further and further and further cause for a lack of health. All lack of health stems from being a step away from your beingness of light. When we say that you must therefore look to your emotional well-being, or that you must look to your spiritual, energetical, all other areas well-being, what we're suggesting is that you see there, in those areas, will lie your ability to come back to beingness of light. And in your beingness of light, you will regain full health. When people experience extreme lack of health, there is extreme distance from beingness of light. And you see, this can creep up on people over time. because they are not necessarily fully aware that they are apart from their beingness of light, that they have become separated from their beingness of light. And over the time, you see that they are drifting further and further and further from their beingness of light. And with no conscious thought to correct that, to come back to center, come back to beingness of light, they are generating more and more and more lack of health, physical sense, lack of health, mental sense, lack of health, emotional sense, lack of self, energetical sense, lack of health in this all whole, look at the whole encompassing picture. And so when the focus, which is where the West is not on health at all, it's on sickness. You are so absorbed in the definition of sickness, the cultivation, therefore, of sickness, that you don't understand that coming back to your beingness of light is the solution to all lack of well-being. Now, in coming back to your beingness of light, if you explore what areas are taking you away from your beingness of light, you will be afforded the solutions to come back to your beingness of light, and in that moment you will regain full health. So, if you wish to look at the individual impacts on Western health at this time, we would say, as we have, number one, that there is this overwhelming focus on sickness rather than on health. Number two, that you have managed to create for yourselves lives dominated by stresses that are not being removed or replaced because they're not being perceived to be the problem. You see, when you have a stressor that says that I am overwhelmed in my life, you see what is happening is not to suggest that your life needs to change, although some are starting to, which is good news. What has overwhelmingly is you're at fault for not coping. Rather than looking to simplify, or rather than looking to eradicate that which is causing you stress, or rather than looking at changing that which is causing you stress, people are looking at my ability to cope with stress. And whilst that is important, because we do not suggest that life for human beings is without stress all the time, understanding that stress is your response to the stimulation that you have in your field of experience. And therefore, you can work on your field of experience in order to reduce the amount of impact upon your stress that there exists for you in your field of experience. So, ideas of energy well-being and ideas of mental well-being and emotional well-being start to look at the implications of lifestyle, the implications of the choices you've made, the implications of the choices you continue to make. And therefore, in those choices and in those decisions and in those pathways that you're walking, you find yourself veering further and further and further away from your beingness of light. When you explore those, you will find yourself coming back to your center point of light, and in doing so you will restore full health. So, whereas the questioner has addressed the West, we would like to say that there has been a global impact, if you will, of the old era energy making its mark on the lives of people fairly consistently across the globe. Not everywhere. But where the Eastern philosophy has always suggested a spiritual and a mental, at least, emotional and energetical equality in the sense of health, that too has been slightly eroded over time due to the impact of westernized society, which states that, for example, if you're not doing, you're not succeeding. If you're not doing, you're not creating. If you're not doing, you're not achieving. Well, the Eastern philosophy always understood that your beingness came ahead of your doingness, and that in your being you were allowing flow and ease into the doing of the human experience. And so they understood the necessity to be your being of light before you tried to do your light. And this has been somewhat eroded over time as the influence of the West has impeded upon that philosophy, but it's not gone. That's why there is a strength there that perhaps was lacking in the West. But let's be optimistic here. There is a awakening, a shift, awakening that is tangible now. And in this awakening, you see, in the extremes, as the questioner has said, that these extremes, epidemics, as he's labelled them, well, epidemics, okay. Well, you see, sometimes when things get so bad, people have to start looking elsewhere. And it doesn't have to be that way. And it's unfortunate that it's got that way. But let's be optimistic, for in every situation that exists today, there is a reason to be optimistic. And the optimism comes from the space of saying that so many people are waking up to the concept that, well, this isn't working, look at us. This isn't working, look at us. This isn't working, look at us. What else is there? We have to shift focus. And in the shifting of the focus, we're coming back to the ideas, the ideals of what well-being means. So let's be optimistic here. Okay, things may have, in the eyes of the questioner at least, reached epidemic status. But in that overwhelmment of sickness, we are being forced to look elsewhere, to see what works, to see what else needs to be included. And what really needs to be included is a shift away from sickness and into well-being. And into well-being, we say, come back to your beingness of light in all areas of your life. And when you do that, you will create full health. So we don't see this as disaster, and we don't see this as despair. We see this as another sign of the shift, another sign of the wake-up call, another sign of the wonderment of the era in which you live, which says that, okay, look at where we are. This can't be right. So what else is there? Now we're open. Now let's go. There is plenty of reason here to be optimistic about the future of health for human experience, because sometimes in the overwhelmment of the negative, people are forced to explore new avenues, new arenas, new departures of what full health really means, with love.